Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss a very important and interesting topic for you all, that is literary devices and its usage. So literary device is what? In a layman's language we can say it is essentially a technique used by a writer which adds substance or effect to the text or what they are writing. Okay, so it kind of ornamentalizes what you are reading, and when you're writing also it provides you with some effect. Okay, so in which a special way is added so that the reader finds it very much interesting to see. So let us now discuss various important literary devices and how it is useful on a daily basis. So it is going to be a much interesting class. So let us proceed. So now let us discuss what is a literary device. So first comes the definition. So here it is given, it is a technique that writers use to create a special and a pointed effect in their writing. So primarily we can say that it is the art of using language so as to persuade or influence the audience, and it also comes to a meaning that this science of using the words effectively in both speaking and writing is the major duty of a literary device, and that is why this is also considered a vehicle for the communication of ideas on a daily basis. So here that is why I have given emphasis and clarity word over here. Its main performance in writing is to provide emphasis, and deep impact is created, and also we get much clarity about the intentions of the poet or the narrator. It also leads the way so that the readers could come closer to the character and what is the thought process of the character in the prose or either in poetry or in some drama or play. Okay, so this is roughly what a literary device is. So, today we will be discussing the types of literary devices, that are simile, metaphor, personification, hyperbole, alliteration, oxymoron, assonance, apostrophe, synecdoche, and metonymy. So, here I have collected the 10 most important literary devices, and in my first class of literary device, I will be discussing the first 5, that is simile, metaphor, personification, hyperbole, and alliteration, and the rest 5 we will be discussing in the second part of our video. Okay, so now let us start with the first and the foremost and the most important literary device, that is simile. So let us now discuss the first literary device, that is simile. So simile is the comparison between two distinctly different things which is clearly made. So while we are going through this literary device, we have to understand a few important points. The first point is that the comparison must be made between two things which are different in kind. Second point is, though it is different, these two things which are compared must have some sort of similarity between them. Then the third important point is, the similarity which you are bringing out should be very much clear. Okay, and the third is, it is indicated by some important words like as so, as if, etc. Okay, so for your clarification, I have given some examples from famous poems. First poem is from Milton's Paradise Regained, and these two lines are, the childhood shows the man as morning shows the day. So here Milton is trying to express that how children are wonderful teachers and how adults should learn from them rather than simply trying to instruct every time or to be protective every time. Okay, and the morning is the time when night ends and the light comes into the world, and the morning is rather considered to be the revealing time. So children also bring that kind of enlightenment, although in a more symbolic sense. So here the morning is considered to be as if the child, which shows you light, which shows you the enlightenment, to be much carefree in some situations rather than to be protective or to be tensed over something. Okay, so this is the first example. Then the second example is also very common and famous poem, The Daffodils, written by William Wordsworth. So the first line of the poem is only the example of a simile, that is, I wandered lonely as a cloud. So as you have seen a cloud which is there in the sky, it does not have a straight path, or it does not have a common thing to be followed. So it always remains clueless. It does not have a specific path to go or to wander about. So likewise, as a cloud is pathless, so here the poet is comparing himself to a cloud. So a cloud is always lonely and it is pathless. It does not have a definite path. Likely, the poet in that situation is feeling lonely and he is just wandering here and there as if a cloud. So this is the second example. Then the third example is, like a child from the womb, like a ghost from the tomb, I arise and unbuild it again. So here this line is taken from P.B. Shelley's most famous poem, that is The Cloud. So here everything is depicted as per the action a cloud performs. So here the origin of a cloud which is continuously changing. Okay, it is an unending cycle of death and rebirth, because as it rains, the water is totally drained out from the cloud becomes empty and the sky becomes clear. Then again the water is soaked up from the earth and again the cloud formates and again it rains. So it is a never ending cycle. Okay, so here the cloud is compared to a child from the womb, as from the mother womb a child comes out, and from the tomb a ghost comes out. Likewise, from the sky the never ending cloud comes again and again. You cannot destroy it. It is always a never ending cycle which will come continuously to you. It can never end. So here the cloud is compared to a child which always comes from a mother's womb. It is compared to a ghost which usually appears from a tomb. Likewise, the cloud also gets its birth again and again. There is no death of it. So these are the three famous examples of simile which we have discussed. So I think it is very much clear. Now let us go to the next literary device. So now let us discuss the second literary device, that is metaphor. So metaphor is a quality or characteristic which is given to a person or a thing by using a name, image or an adjective. So to simplify it a little, let us just remember the difference between a simile and a metaphor. So in the previous slide we have learned that simile is a direct comparison between two different things basing on some similarity. So likewise, metaphor is the indirect comparison between two different things having similar quality. Okay, so here you have to remember simile is a direct comparison. So it is directly given to you. You just have to find out the similarity between the two things. And here in metaphor, here indirect comparison is there, so you have to think a little to analyze what kind of similarity lies between the two. Okay, so the finest example of a metaphor we can say that camel is the ship of the desert. So you have to imagine first what is the relation between camel and ship, and what is a similar thing which makes them or makes that statement a metaphor. So as you know, ship is the only means of transport in the sea. Likewise, camel is the only means of transport in the desert. So here camel and ship are related or compared on the similarity of the means of transport. Understood? Now some other examples I have also written over here. You see, the tree of liberty only grows when it's watered by the blood of patriots and tyrants. So here the comparison is that as a tree needs water and nourishment, likewise, liberty also needs the sacrifice of their own blood and the blood of those who would destroy that liberty. So sacrificing their own blood are the patriots, and the sacrifice of the people who had destroyed their liberty are the tyrants. So in this way only, by sacrifice and by killing the tyrants, only the tree of liberty will grow and it will nourish. Okay. So here the liberty is compared to a tree, but here indirect comparison is there based on, as tree requires water and nourishment, likewise liberty requires the blood of patriots and tyrants. Then the second example is, all the world is a stage and all the men and women are merely players. So this is a very famous line written by William Shakespeare in the play As You Like It. So here the idea behind this phrase is the fortune. Okay. So here Shakespeare says about the seven stages of human life, and he compares the world to a stage. Okay. As on the stage people go perform a different character and come, likewise here in the personal life or in the personal world also, men and women are merely actors which are sent by God to play their part, and after that they return to their places again. So here the world is compared to the stage where all men and women are merely characters or players on the stage, that is called as the world over here. Okay, then another simple example I have given here, that variety is the spice of life. So if I go on explaining it, you have to little analyze it for a while. That is, as spice adds flavor and taste to food, so similarly, variety provides joy to life. Okay, if variety is not there, if some differences are not there in the situation, then everything becomes monotonous. You get bored from your life. Understood? So that is why variety is indirectly compared to the spice which gives flavor and taste to the food. Likewise, variety also provides joy to life. Understood? Then another example is also very much famous, written by Shakespeare only. Thus ornament is but the gilded shore to a most dangerous sea, the beauteous wheeling an Indian beauty scarf. So here ornament is compared to the outward beauty. Okay. So here the message the writer is trying to deliver is, we should not be deceived by the outward appearances. So there is a saying that don't judge a book by its cover. Likewise, we should never get attracted to outward appearances. So here ornament is compared to a dangerous seashore which is attracting people towards it by the high waves which takes the life of people. Likewise, this outward appearances also attract us to some difficult situation which we are not aware of. Okay, so gilded shore means dangerous sea, and it is a warning. Okay, it is trying to explain that it is a warning against the misjudging of the dangers of a turbulent ocean. Because if you once get preoccupied by the outward beauty, then you are in a really big problem. Okay, so here the ornament or the outward appearance is compared to a dangerous sea or a turbulent ocean. Okay, understood? So this is metaphor. Just you have to remember that simile is a direct comparison and metaphor is the indirect comparison. So now let us discuss the third literary device, that is personification. So personification is basically a literary device which is helpful to give an idea or an animal a human attribute. Okay, so the non-human objects are basically portrayed in such a way that we feel that they have the ability to act like human beings. So for example, I say the sky weeps. So the sky has been personified of having a human quality, that is to weep or cry. Okay, so here the sky is weeping and it is a proper example of personification. Another example which I have given here, you see, death lays his icy hands on king. So here death is personified of having icy hands, that is compared to the hands of death. So here the human quality of having hand is provided to death, and here death does not discriminate between people, whether it might be a king or a common man. It is having a similar end to every person. Okay, it never bothers about the wealth, it never bothers about the caste, religion, or anything. Then the second example is, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So here it is taken from the poem The Daffodils, written by William Wordsworth. So as you know, Wordsworth is a famous nature poet. So he has personified daffodils of having the human capability, such as dancing and fluttering, means moving to and fro in the breeze. Okay, so the daffodils are very happy, it is enjoying the nature, and there are 10,000 in a crowd, and they are dancing and fluttering, and here it is given the human qualities. Okay, then the third example is, nature never did betray the heart that loved her. So this is also from Tinton Abbey, written by William Wordsworth. So here nature is considered to be a friend, a guide, a nurse to the mankind. So if you do not betray and you respect nature, then also in return nature will never hurt you, or it will not betray you. So betray is basically a human quality. It is given to nature to justify how nature is a blissful thing for us. If we help or admire nature, then in return we will also get the same. Understood? So these are the primary examples of personification. So let us discuss the fourth literary device, that is hyperbole. So hyperbole means exaggerating something, or if we could simplify it, it means to elaborate or put more emphasis on some situation. So it is just an overstatement, and hyperboles are not comparisons like similes and metaphors, but it is something very much different, which is not meant to be taken literally. Okay, so it is just, its usage is to create a comic effect in some situations. So for example, here a line by Charles Lamb is, I loved a love once fairest among women. So here in these line, the author describes the beauty of his beloved in superlative terms, and according to him, the lady love is the prettiest of all women. Okay, so we cannot think that it is very much practical, but it is just to describe or lay more emphasis on the lady the author loves. So in his eyes, that lady is the fairest or beautiful among every other woman he has seen in his life. Then the second is, put a tongue in every wound of Caesar that should move the stones of Rome to rise and mutiny. So this is a very famous line by William Shakespeare in his play Julius Caesar. So this is highly exaggerated statement which is prompted by the greatly excited feelings of the speaker. And the character was Antony, who was giving a speech on Caesar's murder. So now he is considering the stones being inanimate objects which cannot surely rise in revolt against Caesar's murderers and avenge his death practically, but he is just to emphasize the emotions a lot so that it would create an impact on the mind of the audience. He is speaking such boasting sentences in front of the public so that they could rise in rage and they could help Antonio to take revenge from the people or the Caesar's murderers. Then another example is, 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. So here this again is from a very famous poem, that is Daffodils by William Wordsworth. So here 10,000 saw I at a glance. So practically the poet has not gone one by one counting the daffodils from 1 to 10,000, but it is just a number which he has given so as to justify that there were numerous daffodils present in front of him, and it was very much attractive, and it had attractive colors which were very much enlightening or giving his heart a joyful pleasure, and it was dancing. to and fro. So here again it is an exaggerating statement. He is not having an actual count of the daffodils, but it is for emphasis to let the readers know that there were many daffodils present in front of him. Okay. So the fifth literary device is alliteration. So this is basically the repetition of the same letter or syllable, and it is usually applied to consonants, and to vowels there is a different aspect which will be discussed in the next video. And the main duty of alliteration is to create musical effect in a sentence. Okay. And basically alliteration is applied in poetry. Okay. And it is also found in some expressions like for example, all that glitters is not gold. Okay. So the g sound is very much similar of gold and glitter, so that is an example of alliteration. Then fine feathers make fine birds. So the first sound is very much common and F letter is common, so that is a huge example of alliteration. And we can also see alliteration in some of the tongue twisters. For example, I know one, that is she sells seashells on the seashore. So what is common here? The s and the sh sound. So alliteration is the repetition of the same letter or syllable. So here some few examples I have given you, see. But now I am cabined, cribbed and confined, bound into saucy doubts and fear. So this is taken from a famous play of Shakespeare, that is from Macbeth. So here cabin, cribbed and confined, the k sound or the c letter is very much common. So here it is justifying one emotion, that the narrator is claustrophobic and he is immersed into some doubts and fear that is pissing him off. So the k sound is very much common. So this is the literary device alliteration which is used over here. Then the second one is alone, alone, all alone, alone on a wide, wide sea. So this has been taken from the Ancient Mariner written by Coleridge. So this is also having alliteration or the same repetition of sound, that is a sound, and a letter is very much common. And wide, wide sea, the two words are repeated again. So this is also an example of alliteration. Then Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So you see per sound is repeated again and again. So this is also alliteration. Okay. Then comes how high his highness holds his haughty head. So here also you can see the her sound is coming again and again. So here we can justify that the repetition of the letter H at the beginning of all the words in the sentence produces a musical effect. So many other examples are there, like a university should be a place of light, of liberty and of learning. So L letter is very much common, that is also producing a musical effect. So you must remember the main duty of alliteration is to create some music in the sentence or in the poem. Okay. So that is the duty of alliteration. So I now think that all the five literary devices are clear to you. So in this class or in this video, let us discuss the five literary devices, and I hope you would like the video. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.